So I actually like building hard businesses or difficult businesses because, it creates a kind of barrier to entry for other people and it lasts a longer time. This philosophy of things going up very quickly, in business, especially in the fragrance business, you have to have horse blinders on. Don't look at the other companies. Don't look at what's happening, things going viral and so on. Build a business step by step.
We're going to get into the story of commodity in a second, but I want to learn a little bit more about EuroPerfumes and how that influenced. Like, how do you do both at the same time? It seems crazy.
Well, what's really funny is that commodity is kind of a side hustle right now. It's a massive side hustle. But yes, we represent about, I would say, 22 amazing brands, artistic, artisanal, niche brands in America. It's something we've been doing for 20 years. It's just great brands. We love it. And so, yes, that's actually our main.
So commodity is the side hustle.
It's a side hustle.
So is it like hardcore work then? Because you're doing an extra brand.
Yeah, it's like I'm 50. I know it doesn't look like it.
Me too. Yeah,
you're 50
nice.
High five there. Okay, so I'm 50 and I'm right back to startup world. So yes, it's a full-time job, EuroPerfumes, full-time job commodity.
So a long time being in your EuroPerfumes before you knew about commodity, which launched in 2013?
Correct.
So when they launched, were you aware of that launch and the Kickstarter and all those things?
I wasn't aware of the Kickstarter. I, bumped into them in Sephora because we had a brand called Juliet Has a Gun, which is kind of one of our, great brands, our first brands. And so as we were building Juliet in Sephora, I started bumping into this brand. I'm like, in the corner of my eye, I'm like, what's this? What's going on? Then I found out that, they launched on Kickstarter. And it was just something I kind of kept my eye on, like the corner of my eye every time I would go into the store.
Yeah. It kept your eye. Why? Just because of the interest in their fragrances or what they were doing?
So at EuroPerfumes, we represent, again, 20 brands, and each one, not Juliet Has a Gun, but, from there, we got another brand, and it was more expensive, and then more opulent, and then more gold, and then more crystal. It was just like building upon, this kind of exclusivity, niche. And exclusivity means that you exclude people, right? So it's not meant for everyone. And what I liked about commodity was like, here are these guys who are creating great fragrances and are more accessible, more inclusive, simpler to understand, more intuitive, more elemental. I was slightly jealous, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Cool. So out of all the brands that were out there, that one caught your attention and made you like jealous the most out of some of these other ones that you had interest in?
Yeah, because they were playing, I always say that when we started, we kind of made our own sandbox because we didn't want to compete with some of the larger, not that we didn't want to, we couldn't. Let's be honest, I couldn't compete with the bigger ones. So we created our own business in a sense, our own sandbox of business. Yeah. And they were coming into our sandbox and doing it well.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't jealous in a bad way. It's like envious.
Yeah, envious. Yeah.
I want to.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's like happy for them. Yeah.
Envious is a good word. So let's walk through what happened with commodity. I believe in 2019, they shut down. I want to hear a little bit of history of how and why that happened. I guess there's a famous story of you getting a phone call on the beach talking about an opportunity. Let's live in that world for a little while and tell me what happened with commodity and how did it feel to be on a beach vacationing, maybe in Italy, and getting this phone call, like, sure, like I'll buy this.
Wasn't that glamorous. Let me go back first.
Yeah, please.
To March of 2019.
Okay.
More or less. I was on LinkedIn and I connected with the investor of commodity. Actually, I didn't connect. I stalked. And so he didn't reply back to my connection on LinkedIn. And I just sent him a message like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I do this, that, the other thing. If you ever want a collaboration.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'm here.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I just felt like I'm just putting myself out there.
I love
kind of thing, right? I do it all the time.
Like, me too.
Daily. And so nothing, of course, crickets. Right? Nothing is easy for me. And I totally forgot about it. And I don't know what my intention was. I was like, maybe we can do something domestically, internationally. I have no idea.
You wrote him through LinkedIn?
Through LinkedIn.
Okay, got it.
It's still unanswered, by the way. If you're watching. And so I'm on the beach. It was not Italy. It was the Jersey Shore. I live in New Jersey, and proud of it.
Asbury Park's my jam.
I'm proud of it. So Jersey Shore on the beach, get a text message actually.
Okay.
Hey, we're so-and-so company. This brand commodity, I've ever heard of it. Are you interested in buying it? And I'm like, hey, I'm at the beach.
That's
yes.
it. Just a cold text out of nowhere.
Cold text out of nowhere. I don't know how they got my information. I'm assuming Mr. LinkedIn guy told the lawyers that, hey, I don't know. I have no idea.
Wow, yeah.
Maybe I'm famous. Maybe I'm not. I have no idea.
Someone's watching you with binoculars. He's at the beach.
Maybe, right? So I'm like, I turn to my wife. I'm like, what do you think? She's like, okay. I don't even know if she was listening to me. Right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, yes. Okay, great. I'm on vacation. I'll be back on Monday. I'll call you then.
But right away, you voice 100% interest in saying,
100%.
Because you knew the brand already. You were envious of what they were doing.
You know what I liken it to? Like you live in the city or you live in a suburban neighborhood. And I used to commute to the city like 100 years ago. And there was a building which I really liked. I was like, if there was ever an office in that building available, I'm gonna grab it.
Yeah.
Because you know it. Or you're in a neighborhood, you're like, I love those houses there, Victoria, whatever.
Totally.
Right? You're like, if a house ever came up on that street, I'm gonna jump on it, right?
Yep.
It was like that. It was like I just kind of thought about it. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
That was it. We came back and he started the process. I've never bought anything like this before. I've built everything, right? So I've built my business. I have no idea how it works.
So when you say with EuroPerfumes, when you bring these artisanal brands into the portfolio, are you buying the rights to that? Are you buying that company? Are you buying the rights to that fragrance?
No. So the world of the distributor, I'm a distributor, is, I don't want to be like, woe to me or anything, right? But we don't own the brands. We represent them in America.
Got it. Okay.
And so we're tasked, it's a big deal. We are tasked with building their brand in America.
Mm-hmm.
Many brands are off, kind of like hands off. They're like, here it is, go do your thing.
That's
so
fun.
we have to build those brands as if they're our brands, but they're not. And so
you have somewhat of creative freedom to do that then and build it as you see what would work?
Zero.
Oh, wow.
No. I don't mean create. We have to fight for it.
Okay.
Because the brands want the brand DNA and, we're very American. And then there's this kind of like battle of how to make things work.
So they're clients in a sense, somewhat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. It's a collaboration. Let me be polite about it. It's a collaboration. We love what we're doing.
Cool.
And we build those brands in America, but we've never owned the brand.
Commodity was a first.
There's a history. Maybe we'll get into it today.
Okay.
There's a history before EuroPerfumes, but all of our brands are not ours. We represent them. We take care of them. We love them, but they're not ours.
Cool. But now commodity is yours.
Now commodity is ours.
That's a pretty fun thing.
It's super fun.
Yeah.
The most fun is because, building a distribution business in America has been really interesting. It's extremely difficult. There are very few distributors in America, right? And it's different than the rest of the world. Everything is different in America than the rest, in this industry, than the rest of the world. So when we had ideas, which we, let's say, politely debated with our brands, like, hey, I have this idea, I want to take a fragrance and dangle it from the, from the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, that's not on brand for us. We couldn't do it. So now, do whatever we want.
Yeah.
It's fun.
That's amazing. So when you got that text and you started the process, tell me a little bit about what you and your team did to understand why Commodity shut down in the first place and how much of a homework assignment was that? Like, were they rock bottom? Were you starting from scratch? Was it another startup to do? How much was there to quote unquote like fix to bring back up?
Okay, first of all, I have a philosophy in business, which is, I'm not really a nice guy, but nice guys, this idea that nice guys finish last is totally, I don't believe in it at all, right? So nice guys finish first all the time. So the first thing I did was actually contact the ex-CEO. And I was like, hey, listen, Ash, if you're interested in buying the brand, right? Because imagine you build a brand and, it goes belly up. You maybe say, listen, let me buy it. Let me get some investors and buy it myself, right? So I said, listen, if you're in on this, I'm out. Like, I'm not going to do it out of respect, right?
Yep, yeah.
He's like, nope, thanks so much.
Love that.
But that, goes to show afterwards, he was appreciative of that. So I said, tell me what happened. He's like, no, I'm not in, first of all. I'm not going to do it. And I said, tell me what happened. And essentially it was what I suspected. It's just kind of, it was a victim of its success. It just grew very fast. And to be honest with you, I think if they just stuck around like 6 more months, they would have been fine.
It's like a scaling issue?
Most businesses, I think if this was a business podcast, you would interview, they would say, listen, every business goes through a tipping point. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, for certain brands. Fragrances take a little bit longer, and 5 years is the number. So they launched in 2013. That's the Kickstarter, but really they started in 2015 in real life, or 14, let's say. 5 years from 2014 is 2019.
Yeah.
And if they just stuck around a little bit longer.
Wow.
I mean, really, the 5 year is the tipping point for fragrance brands. And so what I liked about it was that it closed down, frozen in time. Whereas many brands decline. This was like on its way up and then lights out.
Yep.
So
they're like in that limbo there.
Yeah. So it wasn't there was no negative, stuff going on there. It was fantastic. So I started out creating my own brand in 1999.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that.
And so I graduated as an architect. That's my profession.
Sweet.
Yes. And I worked for a year. But I grew up in the perfume world with my family and my father and so on. And after a year, again, one of these like not thought out ventures. I'm like, I think I'm just going to make my own brand. And I created my own brand.
Of fragrances?
Of fragrance. It was called Fleurage. It was all about flowers, and my father loved flowers. And so I created this brand called Fleurage. We used master perfumers, beautiful bottle, the whole 9 yards, right? A year and a half into it, I lost $1.5 million. Dun, dun, dun.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it was really dark period of my life at that point.
Did you just completely give up architecture, studying, being in that world?
I did. My wife was an architect. So
Okay.
I was like, all right, that's, I'll get fulfilled through her in that respect. And I started making my own brand. And I was like, I sent it to Nordstrom. I was like, hey, here's a sample. And they just faxed me an order for $80,000.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine that?
No.
I was like 22.
Wow.
No, 23, whatever.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
so how does one go about creating a fragrance if you have never done it before and you're 22 years old? I'm going to build my own brand. I'm going to build my own fragrance. Tell me, like, this is what I want that to smell like. Where does that inspiration come from?
Well, two different questions, right? So how do you make a fragrance or do something that you don't know, or how do you make it smell? This two-part answer.
Let's start with the first one.
So the first one, what most people, again, I'm actually a 50% lover of perfume and 50% lover of business, actually, entrepreneurship. I really, really enjoy that part of it, right? And so one of the things that I learned early on is that, you don't need to peacock. Like if you go to somebody and say, look, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want to make a microphone. Tell me how this foam is made.
Yeah.
And what is this metal? Why are all mics with this zigzag? Is this a traditional thing? Is there a reason why it's like this?
Yeah.
And people will tell you the answer. And they appreciate the fact that you begin with, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah. Curiosity.
Now, a trick to that is you kind of go to, like, if you really want to work with someone, go to somebody else first. Ask them all those questions so that when you get to the one you want to work with, you're a little bit more knowledgeable.
Educated, yeah.
But if you literally in anything in the world, you'd be surprised how people want to help educate you.
They want to share that knowledge.
Share that knowledge.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of that. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Tell me how to do it. What's best practices?
Cool.
What does Calvin Klein do? What does Estee Lauder do? What do they do? We'll do the same thing.
That's smart.
Right? So that's how it was.
Yeah.
In terms of making fragrance, that's the big question. That's the real big question. And I was lucky enough to have a master perfumer work with us who's now retired back then. But I remember my father, who was in this business at the time, asked one of the master perfumers, his name is Thierry Wasser. He's now working for a big company. He said, what makes a successful fragrance? And of course, everybody in the room is like a boardroom of people and, mostly whatever. And they, they're all giving their answers about marketing and so on. And then it gets to this guy and he says, you know what? And he goes, it's like you're in Las Vegas. He's like, you pull the trigger. If the 3 cherries come, you win. And if they don't, you don't. I mean, what he meant was you can have the best bottle, the best juice, the best everything. Sometimes they don't connect.
Yeah.
It's like in the movies. You're the best cast, the best everything. Doesn't work sometimes,
Yep.
right? And so
there's a little bit of luck there in what the customer is looking for.
more
and
or
does
less.
does it catch on?
And that's why, that's why it's a very democratic process. Imagine you made a fragrance today, right?
I want to.
And you want to, and you should do it. And you make that fragrance and you come to me or anybody here in the room and you spray it on their hand. They're either going to be nice to you and say they like it, or someone's going to be like, not for me, right? And you're going to get hurt. You are going to get hurt.
Yeah,
like,
wow.
Oh my God. It takes time to get over that, right? You have to understand that, there's like 50 different types of jeans, different fits, shoes. Like it's a wardrobe. Fragrance is a wardrobe, and you can't take it personally. And so when people ask, how do you make a successful fragrance? It's about the constant development of like, I have an idea, I have a name, I have a juice, I have this concept, and you put it out there. Does it work? You'll see. Don't know. And you can't take it personally if it doesn't. And so guess what? Mine didn't work. 22 years ago. When I made my fragrance in 1999, it was at that time priced at like $90, okay, where everything else was 60 or whatever, 70, whatever it was, I don't remember. And it was it was artistic. It wasn't a fashion house. It was exclusively distributed. So it had all the elements of what today is called a niche brand.
Yeah.
But that word didn't exist back then, right?
So bringing on all these niche brands onto EuroPerfumes, getting that text on the beach to buy commodity, knowing you're saying, yes, I want to do this. Just describe to me like the first day, first week, first month. What's it like to go into headquarters? I don't know, wherever they are, and understand the factory. All right, we gotta start again. Like, what do you do? How do you start building that up from something that just stalled there?
So that's a good question. I was very insistent on getting the Instagram account of commodity. That was a big deal. Like, I don't care about inventory. I didn't care about anything except the Instagram account. Because if you look back at the feed, what we did, the engagement of the commodity customer was incredible. So positive, so engaging. It was like 30,000 or whatever it was, 20,000 people. And I said, you know what? So I wanted it, which I got. And I, logged in. I'm like, I hope the password works. It worked. And so I said, you know what? It's going to take me a year to I got to go find this inventory. Is there any inventory? I didn't even know.
Oh, wow.
Right? So I knew that I'm just buying the name at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I'm buying is the name and the formulas of the fragrances,
yes.
right?
Yes.
That's the worst case scenario. And that's basically what I got, plus the Instagram. And so I said, all right, it's going to take me a year to get up and running again. But all these people have been in the dark now already for 6 months. I'm going to lose them if I go another year without talking to them.
Yeah.
So again, not thought out, not like a big playbook. I was like, you know what? We're going to make a docuseries. I'm just going to start filming everything that we're doing.
Cool.
At least let them see what we're doing, right? I first began with I was like knocking on the camera, like, hey, we bought this brand. And that was our first post on Instagram. Is this thing on? Take 7,500. You're probably wondering who I am. My name is Vicken Arslanian, and just like you, I was a big fan of commodity fragrances.
What was the time between the last post and that first post? How many?
March
to
October, November.
Oh, okay. Oh, a few months.
So 7 months.
Well, yeah.
And I'm like, listen, you don't know who I am. That's the first post. I'm like knocking. I'm like,
yeah.
You don't know who
guys,
I am.
I'm here.
I'm like, I bought this brand. I've never done this before, so we're gonna do it together.
Love it.
And people are like, this is incredible. Love it. Love it. It was only like 10 seconds long. Then the second episode was called London Calling, which I filmed. So remember the story that I texted the CEO, Ash, and then he was nice. I said, Ash, can I come meet you? Tell me more about this. So I filmed the whole process of going to London, meeting him, meeting the design team, just meeting a whole bunch of people. And so that spawned the docuseries, which really bought us time. We're like, let's just keep them in the loop. And the docuseries, which is on our site, goes through us trying to find the inventory, trying to, the team reveal. We told our whole office, they had no idea.
Wow,
right?
that's cool.
So
is that commodity TV?
That's commodity TV.
Cool.
It's on our website. So there's like 9 episodes, and it goes through all the phases of what we went through.
That's beautiful. That as you're discovering what's going on with the brand, you're filming it in real time so people can discover along with you. That's a wonderful idea.
And it was really like the lag time was whatever, a couple of weeks. It wasn't, like 6 months later.
Wow.
It was really pretty live, and the engagement on that was sick. Honestly, I couldn't believe it. I'm expecting like, who's this doofus, whatever.
Yeah.
Nothing. People are like so nice, so supportive. Really, really, it was really incredible.
I'm sure in the commodity community and the fragrance community in general, people knew who you were. So when you did that little tap, like, oh, it's Vicken, awesome.
I mean, industry people,
Yeah,
but not, not the regular consumer,
Yeah.
not the Sephora customer.
Yeah,
They don't really know what distribution is.
Mm.
They just care like your product's in Sephora. They don't know the back. Most
So-
people don't really know the backstory.
So same as what Scentbird is doing with Scent World, trying to educate and inform customers about the world of fragrance. You guys were doing the same. Let us tell you how this works. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. I mean, this is what they want.
So with commodity, we have Scent Space,
Mhm.
and really fascinating for me because being at Scentbird, and I love fragrances, and I buy my own all the time, just bottles. Finding the right amount that I want to wear is important. I'm usually in the the plus
Mhm.
area, like
Mhm.
what I like, kind of sometimes in the expressive, but usually the plus. I want my smell to be there before I walk into them. Not that much, but I love vetiver, I love patchouli, leather, all these things, pepper. Talk to us about Scent Space a little bit. That was your baby, your idea. Yeah. And no one's ever done this before.
So the Scent Space is like a 20-year, making thesis, right? It formed. I don't want to get too complicated, but it's like 20 years of stuff going on in my mind, right? So we went from, again, in America, I'd go into a room and to present, right? I'm going to present a brand in a room in a store.
Mm.
And sometimes you get people like, please don't spray in here. Please don't, like, arms out for you who are just listening. My arms are like arms out. They don't want me to spray. So there's this like aversion to fragrance, right? So technically America, with whatever, 350 million people, consumes a little bit less fragrance than France of 80 million people. Don't, fact check my numbers, more or less, right?
Yep.
So that means that everybody in France basically wears fragrance, essentially some kind of fragrance. And in America, it's a fraction of the people that actually wear fragrance.
Yeah.
Right? So there's many people that didn't want strong fragrances. They don't want to be smelled, right? So there was that one factor. Another factor is you travel the world and people are like, oh, if you go to the Middle East, they want stronger fragrances. If you go to America, they want fruity florals. If you go to Asia, they want pink.
Yeah.
These ridiculous stereotypes, which
Yeah.
are all ridiculous, by the way.
I agree.
Right? Last thing was this terminology, right? So there's Eau de Toilette, there's Eau de Parfum. Okay, are you ready for this one?
I can never pronounce that right, by the way.
Tell me what you think Parfum de Toilette is. I mean,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it's all rooted in technicalities, of course, percentage of oils. I don't want to dismiss all of it, right? But I think it kind of derailed over the years. There's Parfum Cologne, which makes absolutely no sense, right?
And there's a possibility that possibly cultures in America, they're just not educated on all those different things. So to them, it's confusing, and then they won't buy it.
They won't buy it. It's false confusion. And then you get someplace like, is it Eau de Parfum? If it's not, I'm not going to buy it. Like, they're like, hands out again. Like, I'm not going to buy it if it's not Eau de Parfum. Well, why not?
Yeah.
So on one hand, you're telling me you don't want to smell strong, or you want to smell. So there was a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot. It's not like it's on CNN every day. But I mean, it is in our industry, there was a bit of confusion as far as I was concerned.
For sure.
And more importantly, there's, what I understood was that people were disappointed in their fragrances sometimes, not from an olfactory point of view, not from the smell, but from the performance, right? So I want a strong fragrance, right? So you'll talk to some people, they won't even start smelling, like you're saying you're in the plus range. You didn't say, first, you didn't say I like woody, you said I like in the strong range.
Yeah.
And some people say, I only want personal fragrances, right? My wife being one of them, right? We have 4,000 references in our warehouse, different references. And she was like, still, I'm not going to spray it. I don't want to smell it. Don't put it on my wrist. Don't put it on my hand. Like completely like that. So I realized that, it's really important to give people control over the projection of their fragrances, not necessarily just the scent, but the projection of the scent. And the projection is controlled by really the concentration, let's say. But people didn't understand that. Many people didn't understand it. And so we just reused different words. We kind of threw out Eau de Toilette, Eau de Parfum, Parfum. It goes much deeper, but we recategorized it with personal, which is the lightest, expressive, which is the middle, and bold, which is the strongest. So the interesting thing is that every one of our fragrances comes in these 3 categories, right? So personal, expressive, and bold. So, will scent space work? Will it not work? 18 fragrances. Is anybody going to understand this? I mean, so much performance anxiety going on, right?
Yeah, because you're kind of like tripling what you're making.
Tripling what you're making. I'll get more in detail about the scents themselves, but we launched in October. So we had made this discovery kit of all 18 fragrances.
Yeah, I've seen the boxes. They're gorgeous.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
And we made a brochure inside. So, this kind of conventional wisdom that we like snippets of information today.
Yes.
We don't read, pictures or whatever. So this is I think it's 22 pages. Maybe it's 18. I don't know, something like that. But it's massive catalog, right? It's total opposite of what you would think someone should do, like bits of information. We overloaded information. And we're like, is anybody going to read this?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
What was amazing was that when we sent out these discovery kits to people and people bought them and we launched, in October of 2001, people were taking pictures of the catalog. Of not just the discovery kit, but the catalog.
Because of how beautiful.
Well, because of how explanatory it was. So we really get it. We really understand it. This is amazing. And they were regurgitating our expressive, personal, and bold scent-based concepts. And
that makes sense because if it had never been done before, you do have to educate on
Correct.
What exactly you're doing and what it means.
You're sitting here. And the first scent space is called personal. Scent space personal is designed for the people who like to wear fragrances that are very close to their skin, close to their bodies. And these are fragrances that really require to get really close to somebody. Now, the second scent space is called expressive. And expressive is for people who want a fragrance that's perhaps a little bit more diffusive, that projects a little bit more. Let's say you're at a dinner table and you want people to smell, to experience what you're wearing. Now, when we get to the third scent space, right? So the strongest one is called bold, and this is meant for me and everyone in the room. So this is a fragrance that if you want the whole party to smell, or if you want the fragrance to enter the room before you even enter the room, this is the fragrance that you want.
And I was really, really happy. We all, as confident as people are, we all have insecurities. Well, I don't know about anybody else. I do, right?
Yeah.
So, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? And we were thrilled that people loved the concept. But what was most interesting? What was most interesting is that while the concept first started about a personal collection of skin scents and so on, it was like, all right, we know the middle ones, expressives are great. I want to make skin scents. Let's say you're a nurse or something. You don't want to suffocate your patient, with fragrance. You want a personal fragrance. You put it on, you can smell it, but you don't want someone else to really smell it, right? So who do I go to first? My darling wife. I'm like, all right, here we go. Here's the personal fragrances. Guess what she's wearing now? Bold.
Oh, really? How did that happen?
How did that happen? So we realized that we don't expect people to buy all 18 or 3 or whatever. It's the kind of paradox of choice, I guess. It's like having the choice or the kind of democratic ability to choose for yourself gives you a sense of comfort. You're like, all right, you're not shoving this down my throat.
For sure.
I can do what I want
have
to
an
now.
Opportunity to choose for myself.
And it's fascinating. So people, I don't know. Some people like bold, some people like personal, some people mix them.
And while I do gravitate towards bold, I like to wear fragrances all the time. So if I'm in a car with someone, I might go to personal only because I don't want to, or even on a plane or the train, for instance, I don't want to be crazy to smell up the whole train. I might want to do that one day,
right?
But for now, I want to keep it to myself. So you can gauge your experiences and find the scent that's right for you based on those experiences.
Exactly. I mean, when I take my mother somewhere on a like a half an hour trip somewhere, I have to call her an hour in advance and say, don't spray your fragrance. You're going to be in the car with me. So, she's wearing these classic florals, jasmines, and really strong stuff. I'm like, don't, please. I'm like, Mom, please don't spray. Because I can't, in the car,
It's
just
a
like you
lot.
mentioned, it's too much.
Yeah.
And so you make a good point. I mean, there's different occasions for these different things. But one last thing I'll say is that in the last 10 years, it's amazing how the plus, the bold, the beast mode, the more is more.
Beast mode.
I mean, it's gone out of control.
I was going to ask you, are you seeing data that people gravitate towards one of the three?
It's by region of the world.
Okay.
But by fall, I mean, right now, the biggest part of the collection is the Expressive collection, but that's because it's also been around the longest. If I have to guess, if you told me, listen, you have no choice, you have a gun to your head, you have to get rid of everything, I'd keep the bold collection.
Oh,
Probably.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it's that's how much it's going towards, the market's going towards that direction today.
Well, it's just so,
Yeah.
It's good.
They want to make a statement.
Yeah. So did you do Expressive first and then add the other two, or were they launched all at the same time?
No, so first of all, there's 19 fragrances, right? So one of the episodes is called a chopping block, and you should watch that. That was kind of the best one because we got the most hate, but not hate, right? Type of thing.
Yeah.
So we set this table up, and I said we brought 2 senior members of our team. Now remember, when we hire people, first of all, I never hire for EuroPerfumes.
Yeah,
I
they're
never
not my
hire
favorite.
from the industry. I'm always hiring non-industry people. So they come to our office. I'm like, where do you get your fragrance? Like, we get it at a department store, Macy's, whatever. Like 4 weeks into it, they're fragrance snobs. Like if it's not harvested, in the moonlight with whatever,
crystals.
Yeah. They're not wearing it anymore. It's finished, right? So anyway, we sat down with the 2 senior people. I'm like, listen, Jennifer, Elaine, we're not going to argue. We're going to do speed dating. We're going to smell everyone. We're all going to say yay or nay. That's it. So we took 19 fragrances, sprayed it. We're like, yes, no. And we basically chopped everything except 4 fragrances from the whole collection.
Whoa.
Yes. That's why we got a lot of hate, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes. And
But you were curating. I mean, this is your vision, right? This is what you're building. So you're curating what.
Well, that's a polite way of saying it. That's a nice way of saying it. I was chopping.
Yeah.
You're saying curating. The end result is we kept 4 fragrances. Look, we kept everything in what we call the archives. If you still want those fragrances, you can have them.
Cool.
But we weren't going to focus on those fragrances, right? So we kept gold, book, velvet, and moss.
Yeah.
Okay. Love those fragrances.
Yeah.
And then we brought back an old, but kind of a previous fragrance called Paper, which was an ISO-E Super, which they didn't give enough time for it to work. And so they discontinued it. I brought that back.
Cool.
And we developed a new one called Milk, which we'll talk about in a second. So all of our fragrances begin at that Expressive level, which we feel is the perfect blend or the perfect combination of longevity and projection, right? From there, we then develop what we call the minus or the personal or the plus or the bold, right? We even put the minus and plus. Everything about commodity is kind of intuitive. So we really used the minus sign and the plus sign.
I love
we
that.
use these little dots, 2 dots, 5 dots.
From a visual cue, it's very easy to understand. This
Very
is
easy.
a little less. This is a little more.
Exactly. And so we always begin at the middle, and then each fragrance, meaning the personal or the bold, is kind of an alter ego. So it's not about concentration only. The one interesting secret is that our personal fragrances have a higher concentration than our Expressive fragrances. Yes, they're 22%, while our Expressives are 15%. And the reason is because it's not about strength. It's about projection, right? So we made a formula which stays close to your skin, but we amped up the concentration so it lasts a long time.
Wow.
So weakness doesn't have to, I say weakness, but a light scent doesn't have to not last a long time on the skin. And so that's how we do it. We start in the middle, then we go left and right.
Yeah. And that's, I believe, part of the education of letting people know, hey, just because it's the minus doesn't mean it's any less wonderful to smell. It's just we've made it this way for you. Okay, so we are talking about scents. So we have 3 in front of us: Paper, Milk, and Book. We're going to start with Paper. I think I'd really love for you to spray some on the blotters for us. We smell them at the same time. Talk to us a little bit about what range it's in, like the plus or minus or normal, and the notes involved. And I'm just probably gonna lay back and sigh because they're so delicious. But let's start with the first one.
So we're gonna have one of each, right? So we'll have a one in the personal, the minuses. We'll have an Expressive, and we'll have a bold.
Yep.
So we're gonna start with Book personals.
Book personal.
I think. So
Let's
spray
do it.
that.
Cool. All right, let's do this together.
So Book is a crisp, we call it as like a crisp paper, crisp, woody fragrance. All of our fragrances have kind of a dual nature to them, like two notes that are opposing. So in this case, the eucalyptus and the woody notes of cedar wood oppose each other. So the eucalyptus gives it this fresh, crisp top.
Yes.
And then the woods get warmer kind of at the bottom.
It's funny how these play together so beautifully, that it is crisp, but then it feels so warm.
And so the personal version adds this molecule called ISOE Super, which helps the fragrance last much longer on your skin, right? So you have this kind of light, crisp, woody fragrance that lasts all day on your skin. Very fresh, very hard to describe, right? How do you describe a book when it comes to being a fragrance? So it's one of the best sellers. It's our third in line as the best seller. It's truly unisex as a fragrance.
For sure.
I would say 50-50 in terms of, who's wearing it.
Yep. This is what I wore today, actually. I wore this.
I smell it, all over it for sure when I walked in. So it's a great fragrance, actually.
Beautiful.
So we'll move on.
Yeah. Right. Tell us about this.
Okay. So now we're talking about Milk. So I have to give you the backstory. Milk is one of the fragrances that we created in our, as owning commodity, right? So when we met with a perfumer, she's like, what, she needs inspiration. So what do you like to do? And I said, we have a house in the mountains and I love being in the mountains. I love being out by my fireplace. I have a tractor. I'm really like an outdoors person. And as a side note, I said, I like welding. I'm really hands-on. And she's like, welding? I said, yeah, welding. Anyway, months later, I go, we go, and the way it works is that you go to the meeting and the perfumer gives you all these different fragrances, different thoughts that they had. And, we went through all of them. And one of them, like midway in the collection, she's like, well, I made this one for you. It's kind of a wild card.
Oh.
So I wanted to combine, remember, everything's like dualities, right? It's like I wanted to combine hot and cold, warm and cold. And so I took your two inspirations, which is your fireplace. So I used roasted marshmallows.
Yes.
And the feeling
That's what that smell is.
There you go. And the feeling of cold welded steel.
Whoa.
Like, how do you do cold toasted marshmallows?
That's the beauty of, wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then we saw it. We're like, and I looked at each other like, this, it's like milk. By the way, of course, there's no milk in it, right? It does have lactonic notes, but there's no real milk in the fragrance. It really clicked. We made no mods, right? So what's a mod? Mod is, you get the fragrance and then you're like, well, can you make it a little bit more sweet, a little bit less sweet, a little bit, modified, right? That's what it stands for. Nothing. Like that was it. It went from
done.
there. We're done. That was Milk. It's our 40% of our business today. It's our number one seller. I love it. I really do. It's really weird. How do you get cold?
Yeah.
Like this coldness of, cold welded steel. How did she do it? I have no idea. She won't tell me exactly, but it's marshmallow notes.
That's the beauty
beans.
of a perfumer. It's like, it's a mad scientist. Like, how do you do that? It's like they're wizards.
Exactly.
And you described it beautifully because to me, it's indescribable. This scent, you just have to smell this.
You have to smell it. I mean, you can say gourmand, of course.
Yeah.
But that doesn't capture it. It's not really sweet. It is a little bit, but it's a bit warm, a bit cold. It's a combo of the both.
And when we say toasted marshmallows, I want to make sure everyone listening knows it's not very candy-ish or something very sweet. It's just that you get those notes, but then it goes to that cold steel too. And there's something you get that warmth of marshmallow.
It's really, I agree. For me, it's always important to cut, one with the other, right? So Gold, which is one of our other best sellers, uses amber to cut the vanilla's sweetness.
Yes.
And so when you have, this perfect balance, like in food, like in any other art, they work really, really well together. So like Book, you have the two opposing of the crispness of the eucalyptus, you have the warmth of the wood.
For sure.
Milk, you have the marshmallow and whatever she used to make it cool. Right?
That's a wonderful analogy. I actually never thought of fragrances like cooking. You have this one taste. We're going to offset it with cilantro, for example. Like, and when you taste like something foodie, like I've never tasted those two together, but it's a wonderful feeling. That's what fragrance is. I think we're combining things for the first time.
Painting,
yeah,
food, music. Right, we're talking about notes, accords. They're all really linked.
Yeah,
they're all very similar conceptually in terms of creating, and especially painting. When you look at certain kind of impressionist art. You'll see this like blue or green streak in a portrait that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the balance, it works when it's balanced together. with the other colors. And so
Love
they're
it.
very similar in the creation
Yeah.
process.
Music is my love language. So now I get it. Like we have mostly major chords here, but I put in these few minor chords and
See?
it's weird, but it works. You know, that's like a Beach Boy song.
Well, all the terminology is the same, right? Top note, middle note, bottom note,
yeah.
accords. Accords are like a milk accord. Because there's no milk scent,
Yep.
you make an accord. You combine notes, you
Yep.
combine ingredients to make that smell. It's very, very similar, actually.
All right. Last one.
So Paper Plus. Paper is an experiment. Okay. So remember
Beautiful
that
experiment.
experiment. So let's start out with what this is. Creamy sandalwood.
Creamy.
That's really it. I can't go much deeper than that. I don't believe in overcomplicating fragrance descriptions too much. It's really very important. Again, it goes back to history of when I tried to do that on QVC one day, where I was actually on QVC.
For reals?
For reals.
Wow.
Back to the docuseries. If you watch the lover-hater video, you'll see the whole story. But I was on
Is there
QVC.
footage of you on?
No, I couldn't find it. I wish I could.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't put it on. It's like seeing yourself from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But I went on QVC, and again, I stood in front of the camera, and I was like, this is a beautiful, complex bouquet. And I kept saying complex and bouquet and complex. And, on camera, it's like, well, I don't know what the hell complex bouquet. How am I supposed to buy this? When you're talking about how complex it is, right? So I'm like, now, creamy sandalwood.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's all you need to know.
That's it's really important. You can go deeper when you see that somebody's interested, like you like notes, so I can talk to you about notes.
Totally.
What kind of sandalwood? Well, it's from this part of the world, and we can go deeper into it. But paper is really interesting because Paper Expressive, remember the middle, which is where we start from, it's an ISOE Super, which is a very cedar woody smelling kind of wood scent, fragrance.
Mm-hmm.
Its characteristic is that it doesn't smell on paper. It's really odd, right? When you put ISOE Super on a piece of paper, you can't really smell it.
Oh, wow.
It develops over time. When you put
on skin.
On skin. And it's one of the rare ingredients that actually, for me, it's not like a fact, but for me, instead of getting weaker, like most fragrances do, ISOE Super develops. It kind of builds on your skin, right? So
so that's the complex. It gets a little bit more complex as you wear it?
Yeah, because you put it on and you're like, I don't really smell anything. And then you go home, you're like, what's going on here? Like, what am I smelling, right?
I love that.
And so when the Paper Trilogy, how do you make something that doesn't smell to smell more, stronger, right? So the Paper Trilogy is an experiment in molecules. And so Paper Expressive is a kind of a cedar woody. The Paper Personal has a little bit more of a feminine touch. It's using other ingredients like Cedilux and so on. And Paper Plus has a real creamy note, which is a sandalwood creamy note.
Love it.
It's one of my favorites. I can't get enough of it. I want to make it a bit stronger, because I love it so much. I keep applying it all the time on my skin. I would say that, Velvet is one of my favorites in the collection.
Yep.
I would say Paper Plus is my second favorite in the collection. Not that it's second best, it's just my second favorite.
Personally, and this is me really being honest, right? They're all wonderful and they all complement each other. I think that's really hard to do. They smell different. The scent I get are different on my skin, but they're all so lovely. And then when you start to combine them, it just makes it complex in the most beautiful way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, and you can many people combine them.
Yeah.
Like for example, Gold Minus and Milk is combined all the time.
Yeah.
So we were thinking.
So when we talk about combine, I can spray both together, but are there people, can you kind of mix them? Or would that just kind of cancel that out?
I wouldn't.
You would, yeah.
You don't want to open a bottle and all that kind of stuff. But you definitely layer.
Yes.
We're gone from the days of signature.
So about the fragrances, when you say, I wish I can keep going and make this even more, are there plans to extend that range? So if you talk about Paper Plus, for instance, as an example, and you want to make it more expressive, are you done with those and you're inventing new scents? Or would you ever push that nature?
We have like a spy in our company. Is that what's going on here?
Oh, well.
So that's a great question. If you asked me 6 months ago, I would say, well, isn't 3 enough? Going back to the market trend, I am thinking about like, I don't know what you even to call it, like insanely beast mode or whatever, like really
plus,
like super plus.
Yeah.
We're thinking about it.
That's awesome.
But not of all of them. We think about taking 1 or 2, maybe a limited edition.
How could you not? Just like experiment with that.
It depends, going back to art and so on, sometimes you keep painting and then it's finished, like you're done.
Yeah.
You just got to like wrap it up, even if the painting's not finished, but you kind of ruin it if you keep going.
Yep.
And so
same with music, like
same
that.
with music.
That song's done.
It's done, right? So I'd love to do it. Can we do justice to the collection is the real question.
And that would be also, I would say, an experiment. We're going beast mode now with this. Let's see how people react to it.
Let's see how people react to it. But the beauty of it is that we're not guided by having international blockbuster successes. So if I make it and we make some bottles and and some people like it, that's good enough for us, because we're really kind of experimenting in building a brand around the discovery of people's desires of strength and fragrances. So we have a much different set of criteria for success than I think a lot of big companies do. So if it smells good, we'll do it. We're actually working on it.
Cool. Lovely. So Vicken, one of my favorite things about fragrances is the emotional aspect. We talked about music, art, architecture. You always have an emotional response to what you're seeing, wearing, smelling. One of my favorite things is to describe the emotion of what I was feeling when I was at a certain area and I wore something. Scent is like a memory, so you keep that in your brain. I'd love to learn about your key moments in your life where something important happened. And if you could describe that moment in a fragrance, what would that smell like? So going back to that moment on the beach when you got the text message and you're like, yep, I'm going to buy this company. What did that feel like? And can you describe a fragrance around that?
Wow, that's a tough one. What did it feel like? So first excitement, nervousness, and then immediately, I think I can do this. This is it. It's like really like three quick thoughts went into my head. It was, not much more than that.
Yeah.
I associated with the fragrance Rain from our collection because I knew that some people liked it, and I knew that I was going to chop it, and I knew they were going to chop my head off. So that day for me is with Rain, not Rain, the physical Rain, but the fragrance Rain, which is kind of a light floral, kind of, fresh floral scent. So it's happy. So as I don't like florals too much, but it's a happy, happy scent, happy moment.
Cool.
And I associate it with that.
Yeah. I love that moment. It's happy and success and just like the unknown.
Yeah.
We're going to
Nervousness.
do this.
Yeah. Nervousness, but fun nervousness.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Excitement.
It's cool. Yeah.
Cool. Coming up with the idea of Scent Space, I was telling you a little bit about my podcast musical idea. I'm like, I don't know if anyone's done this before. Like, we got to get started. Same with that concept. How did you feel thinking like, oh, no one's ever done this minus and plus before? I think I have a pretty major idea. Like, let's get this started right away. What did that feel like?
Again, the creation part did not have anxiety at all, because, we represent brands that have so many fragrances in them, right? So let's take a brand like Montal. I don't know, officially it has 80 fragrances. We only have 30 of them, right? So if in our office, I always wanted to find a way to navigate these artisanal fragrances. And I always would put them light to dark as a fragrance, although there's no such thing as light to dark, but cologne, citrus, whatever, florals, woods, deeper and deeper and deeper, and ouds at the end kind of thing, right? So I've always gone through that process. And so I was always putting anything I get, I'm like reshuffling it around like an OCD kind of person. So, I was putting commodity in the lineup of like where I would do it. And so if I'm going to associate, so there was really no feelings, I have to say. I'm like, I don't want to make up anything. There's not really feelings. I was just,
it's okay.
Just working. But oud is what I would say is the question mark, right? Where does oud belong in this collection? And the idea that, oud represents historically fragrances from the Middle East. And then there was like this divide. Those are for Middle East and America likes this. All that's gone, right? So how do we bring that into our collection one day? And where would it fit? And again, if you just see my hand motion, I'm making like a like a piano thing, right? Like
you have all these rows of
things.
These
rows of things.
Where's this going?
Where does this go into? And so I associated oud with it because it's the counterpoint. It's the strong. It's the beast part of the collection. So if there's a strong, there must be the light. And that's what I associate as a fragrance.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. With every feeling, there's a darkness and a lightness to it. Like you might feel one way and you can go darker, or you can go lighter. That's cool.
Well, do you associate days of the week with color?
Sometimes.
Right? Some people do.
Yeah.
I don't, but I've realized a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And people fight over it. They're like, no, Monday's yellow, definitely.
Yeah.
Right?
Mondays and Tuesdays are like in a softer pastel color
See?
for me, but
There we
Friday, Saturday is like sunny bright.
Sunny bright.
Yeah, yeah.
See that?
Getting a little personal, talking about your family. I know you have this wonderful history of your first business and learning about fragrances from your family business. Just working with your dad at Royal Beauty Group. Tell us a little bit about that experience, and if you could kind of summarize a scent with that memory, what would it be?
The most important memory I have is he used to come into my room when I used to kind of live at home, and wakes me up in the morning. I'm not awake. He's like, "Are you awake?" I'm like, "I'm awake now."
Yeah.
And he would take a bottle of whatever was on my shelf of fragrance. Usually it was like a Versace per ohm kind of thing, right? So at that time, and he would, "Don't do this at home." Let me just start right there.
I don't know. I'm like, this might be a good idea for me and my son.
Do not do this at home. And I'm not even joking. He would take the fragrance, point it at his face, close his eyes, and spray it on his face, and then inhale. I think he had no blood. I think he had fragrance as a in his veins, in his bloodstream. And so I always associated those kind of like classical masculine fragrances, with my father, and that experience of growing up with him in the industry. So
that's fun.
It was good. It's good memories.
So Vicken, I think you have this personal business philosophy, and it kind of maybe goes hand in hand with this Oprah effect. Talk to me a little bit about your personal philosophy and what that means to you and the company, your business altogether.
I've talked about the Oprah effect a lot. So I actually like building hard businesses or difficult businesses because, it creates a kind of barrier to entry for other people and it lasts a longer time. And many people have always asked, why don't you send samples to Oprah or whatever? And I never did, of course. And I didn't because I'm fascinated by how to build a brand. And of course, if I sent it to Oprah and she loved it, it would work. But I can't replicate that. So I'm always looking for kind of the formula. Like how do I, if you want to make a fragrance, so, well, what if Oprah's not going to put your fragrance?
Yeah, what do I do?
So what's the alternative?
Yeah, for sure.
So it was always about not relying on Oprah, I guess, is what it is. But if Oprah wants our fragrance, we'll send their sample. So yeah, and there's this philosophy of things going up very quickly. In business, especially in the fragrance business, you have to have horse blinders on. Don't look at the other companies. Don't look at what's happening, things going viral and so on. Build a business step by step. Our collaboration with Scentbird, I don't know if it goes back to like day one, but practically I would say it goes back to day one.
Beautiful.
Because I really believed in sampling. And Scentbird allows, and other companies allow the consumer to try fragrances.
And experiment.
Because, time and time again, you spray it on, you like it, you go home, like a couple hours later, it's not the same.
Yeah, and I had just spent over $100 on this bottle.
Exactly, right? And so, I'm not trying to plug Scentbird, but, we work with many companies, Scentbird being one of them, and I love this concept of one customer at a time, get it into their hands.
Yes.
They may like it, they may not like it, and then move on to the next,
Try again.
Move on to the next. Yeah. And the slow build, I think in any industry, you'll find an agreement that, building a brand slowly ensures longevity more than the fast build. It's not absolute. Yes, there's brands that skyrocket and potentially can be that way. But if I'm a betting person, I go for the slow build.
Slow game.
Long game.
Long game. That's
long
what it is.
game. Long
so
game.
It's like being patient, being mindful, being thoughtful. We have some big ideas.
Right.
Here's our trajectory. We're gonna take it slow.
Yes.
We're gonna learn along the way.
We're definitely gonna make mistakes along the way. That's for sure.
Quick on that. Can you name one?
Can I name a mistake?
Vicken's like, well, we make mistakes. But
right,
actually, have we made a mistake?
I'll tell you a mistake that we avoided. How about that?
Yeah,
right.
please.
So we increased our prices, whatever it was, like 5 months ago, right? And so, I'm 50, so I'm a slightly traditional guy, right? So when my team came and like, we're going to raise the prices, what should we do? I'm like, don't worry about it, just raise it. Some people will complain and then, whatever. I mean, everyone's raising their prices. It's inflation. It was just like, I'm so busy and I'm not thinking clearly. And my team was like, no, we're going to do a whole transparent marketing efforts, Instagram post, live, story, the whole thing. This is why we're doing it. This is, how it's going to affect you. This is what you're getting. And honestly, it was, as a business principle, like I was fascinated by the reply, right? So we had, I think if you look back at the post, 99 comments, of which 96 were positive, like clapping hands, do more, we don't mind, you can go higher. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And, traditional business would tell you that they're going to curse you out.
Yeah.
Just 3 people only that said, boo. And it wasn't even bad.
Yeah.
It was just like, boo, whatever. It was fascinating. And that's a mistake that we avoided. And it's not due to me. It's to my team. So that's a mistake I would have made. I would have been like, doesn't matter. Just
Cool.
raise the
Yeah.
price.
Well, yeah.
But nothing, we're only, it's a blip in history. So it's only been a year.
Totally.
We're going to make some mistakes.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of learning, is you can't learn unless you make a mistake and learn from it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
It sounds like you're doing so well, and it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Your fragrances are divine.
Thank you.
And just congratulations on having, for me, being a creative person, having an idea, possibly knowing no one's done it before, and going after it and trying it. And it sounds like it's been a success. So congratulations.
I appreciate that. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thanks to our, our community for supporting us and pushing us.
Awesome to have you. Thanks again for joining us at Scent World.
Thank you so much.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.